Hello, and welcome to Opsgility's Certification Update webinar. My name is Scott Hoag. I'm a Principal Cloud Solutions Architect at Opsgility, and today I'll be taking you through the updates to Microsoft certifications for both Azure and Microsoft 365. In this webinar, we'll be reviewing the opportunity for certification, including the realignment of Microsoft certifications to be more consumable and role-based, in addition to discussing the newly announced certifications and learning paths for Azure and Microsoft 365. There's a tremendous opportunity that comes from having skills in cloud computing, as a developer, an IT professional, and as an architect. Whether you're an individual contributor, a member of a wider team, or a manager driving skills within your organization, there is value in understanding cloud computing in the context of Azure and Microsoft 365. When looking at cloud strategies, 70% of CIOs plan to have a cloud-first strategy. While this doesn't mean that on-premises is going away, it's going to become a much smaller part of our roles over time. In addition to this cloud-first strategy, 85% of enterprises are planning to have cloud infrastructure of some type. These strategies will lead to a shortage of skills in the workplace. For those organizations that are approaching the cloud, only 16% of organizations feel they have the required skills and processes to successfully host workloads in the cloud. This gap will increase over time, especially when you consider the pace of change in both Azure and Microsoft 365. What this means for you is that there is a tremendous opportunity to not only learn these skills, but also to be seen as a subject matter expert by obtaining certifications. How is this relevant to you, and how can you take advantage of this opportunity by becoming Microsoft certified? First and foremost, Microsoft has revamped their approach to certifications by focusing new certifications on job roles, which are then aligned to specific experiences that are necessary to be successful in those roles. Certifications also exist to provide recognition of your expertise in a given technology or area, whether you're looking to use that recognition in your current role or in your search for a new position. Role-based certifications and training require specialization. The current exams and certifications are very broad, with sometimes nebulous subjective domains that students need to be proficient in. Even the sheer range of skills required for the current certifications can be daunting. Products like Azure and Microsoft 365 are simply too broad, and these new certifications allow you to focus on specific skills and technologies. The role-based certifications that are being announced and rolled out here are just the start. If you don't see your role here, don't worry. There are more coming throughout this year and next calendar year. The Azure Administrator certification is out of beta and available today, with the Azure Developer and Azure Architect exams still in beta. The Azure DevOps certification will be coming later this year. If you align to Microsoft 365, there are two currently announced certifications. Both an Enterprise Administrator certification, which is analogous to the current Office 365 certifications, and a new Modern Desktop Administrator certification, which will cover desktop deployments, security, and more. Opsgility has training for a number of these roles today, with curated learning paths, on-demand computer-based training, and access to our real-time lab platform. We also offer instructor-led training with world-class trainers who come from industry, bringing their expertise to your organization. With these new certifications, there's a large focus on aligning these roles and tested skills to real-world job tasks. Microsoft uses an internal process known as job task analysis to ensure that these certifications will be both relevant and realistic. Microsoft works with not only internal resources, but also external subject matter experts and learning partners such as Opsgility to ensure these trainings are on the right path. This collaboration and identification leads to the creation of a master list of skills and the generation of a learning path. These paths are then backfilled with training and assessments. For training, there is micro-learning from Opsgility and Microsoft. We offer modules that then roll up to courses, that then roll up to learning paths, which also ensure that you remain aligned in your learning. You can also approach learning in a more structured way with online courses and instructor-led training. There are also books available, but you do have to watch for outdated material. As I previously mentioned, the cloud moves at a phenomenal pace, and you'll want to make sure you have access to the latest materials, regardless of how you choose to learn. Finally, we have assessments in the form of the certification exams themselves. Now let's take a deeper look at these certifications, beginning with the Azure certifications. To begin the Azure certifications, we have Azure Fundamentals. This certification is an optional certification and not necessarily for those that already know Azure. It will introduce students that are new to Azure to the breadth of the Azure platform and ensure they understand the fundamentals of cloud computing. It is a technical certification, but doesn't go as deep as the other certifications we'll talk about today. Moving beyond the fundamentals to associate level certifications, we'll see the role-based certifications we discussed earlier, including the Azure Administrator and Azure Developer certifications. Also, as I mentioned, there are more certifications in the pipeline, which will be released over the remainder of this and the next calendar year. Each of the certifications has 2 exams behind it. So to become a certified Azure Administrator, you would sit for 2 tests, and the same for the Azure Developer Associate. There are also new expert level certifications coming as well. These certifications are backed by 2 exams, just like the associate certifications. The difference here is one exam is technical and one is design-based. Finally, I'd like to touch on prerequisites. When you're evaluating which certifications to approach, there are no prerequisites for the associate exams, as Azure Fundamentals is optional. There are also no prerequisites for Azure Solutions Architect. It's up to you to judge your skill level and when you're ready to sit for the exams and the certifications. There will be a prerequisite for the Azure DevOps certification, either the Azure Administrator or Azure Developer. You don't need to take both to progress to the DevOps exams and certification. The ability to sit for an expert exam without a prerequisite certification is a good thing. Realistically, there are architects who will never be administrators or developers, and this aligns much better with the real world. Before we get into the new certifications and learning paths, it is important to note that there is a transition plan for those of you that may have an existing Azure certification. Your investments in learning about Azure are not lost. If you do hold an existing certification, either the 7533, the 7532, or the 7535, there will be a single transition exam. By taking the one transition exam and passing, you will receive the certification in your respective area. For instance, if you currently hold the 7535 certification, you can take the AZ302 upgrade exam. When you pass the exam, you will be a certified Azure Solutions Architect. Note that there is no transition for the 7534, which was the previous Azure Architecture exam. As we walk through the learning paths, I'd like to touch on the target audience for each certification as well. This helps to frame the conversation about who should consider each certification path. Let's begin with the Azure Administrator job role. Azure administrators manage cloud services that span storage, security, networking, and cloud compute capabilities. Candidates for these exams have a deep understanding of each service across the full IT lifecycle and take requests for infrastructure services, applications, and environments. They also make recommendations on services to use for optimal performance and scale, as well as provision, size, monitor, and adjust resources as appropriate. Now let's take a look at some of the learning paths for the Azure certifications, starting with the learning path for the Azure Administrator role. As I mentioned, this certification will require sitting for 2 exams, the AZ100, which broadly covers Azure infrastructure and deployment, and the AZ101, which will focus on Azure integration and security. When we think about Azure infrastructure for the AZ100, you'll see coverage for managing subscriptions, storage, virtual machines, and managing identities and role-based access control. The AZ101 has deeper coverage and builds on the AZ100 to a certain degree. You'll see advanced networking, securing identity with advanced Azure AD controls, how to migrate virtual machines and workloads to Azure, as well as broad coverage for Azure App Services and serverless services such as Azure Functions. Passing the 2 exams will lead to the Azure Administrator Associate certification. Let's get into the Azure Developer exams and the associated job role there. Azure developers design and build cloud solutions such as applications and services hosted in Azure. They participate in all phases of development, from solution design to development and deployment to testing and maintenance. They partner with cloud solution architects, cloud DBAs, cloud administrators, and end users to implement solutions. Candidates for these exams should be proficient in developing applications and services by using Azure tools and technologies, including storage, security, compute, and communications. Candidates must have at least 1 year of developing scalable solutions through all phases of software development and be skilled in at least one cloud-supported programming language to be successful with these exams. Now let's take a look at the developer role learning path. Again, you'll see two exams, the AZ200 and the AZ201. The AZ200 focuses on PaaS services and security, including how to rationalize the selection of services and understanding when to use what. The AZ201 focuses on developing for the cloud with modern design patterns, how to approach and integrate multiple PaaS services, as well as how to develop for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and IoT, or the intelligent edge. By passing both the AZ200 and AZ201, students will receive the Azure Developer Associate certification. Now let's consider the Azure Solutions Architect role. An Azure Solutions Architect advises stakeholders and translates business requirements into secure, scalable, and reliable solutions. Candidates for these exams should have advanced experience and knowledge across various aspects of IT operations, including networking, virtualization, identity, security, business continuity, disaster recovery, data management, budgeting, and governance. This role requires managing how decisions in each area affect an overall solution. Candidates must be proficient in Azure administration, Azure development, and DevOps, and have expert-level skills in at least one of those domains. Finally, we have the learning path for Azure Solutions Architect. As I mentioned earlier, there are no prerequisite certifications that you need to obtain before you begin to approach this certification, so you can dive right into the AZ300 and AZ301 learning paths if that's what makes sense for you. The AZ300 is the technical exam, focusing on the configuration of infrastructure, the technologies that are available for designing solutions, and how those services can be secured. There will also be a touch of developing for the cloud, which speaks to the breadth of this exam. The AZ301 is the design-focused exam, with coverage for identity and security, data platform solutions, deployment, migration, and integration, as well as how to design an overall infrastructure strategy. After passing the AZ300 and AZ301, students will obtain the Azure Solutions Architect Expert certification. Now let's move on to take a look at the Microsoft 365 certifications that have been announced. These certifications are all new. Note that there are no fundamentals here. Students will progress straight into an associate level certification. The first certification announced is brand new, and that is the Modern Desktop Administrator certification. Just like the two Azure certifications, this certification is also comprised of two exams, one for Windows 10 and another that will cover other areas that are still to be determined. And of course, there are more roles that will be announced over the remainder of this year and the next calendar year. Moving on to the expert level, there is a new Enterprise Administrator certification. This isn't just Office 365, but Microsoft 365, making it more broad than the existing Office 365 certifications. To achieve this level, an associate certification will be a prerequisite, and then there will be 2 more exams required at the expert level. As the Microsoft 365 certifications are also role-based, let's explore the Microsoft 365 Enterprise Administrator target audience as well. Microsoft 365 Enterprise Administrators take part in evaluating, planning, migrating, deploying, and managing Microsoft 365 services. They perform Microsoft 365 tenant management tasks for an enterprise, including managing its identities, security, compliance, and any supporting technologies. Candidates for these exams should have a working knowledge of Microsoft 365 workloads and should have been an administrator for at least one Microsoft 365 workload, such as Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Skype for Business, or even Windows as a Service. In addition, candidates should also have a working knowledge of networking, server administration, and IT fundamentals such as DNS, Active Directory, and PowerShell. Let's take a look at how Microsoft is approaching the learning path for the Enterprise Administrator role. Taking a look at this path, you can see multiple areas that you'll need to prepare for, including tenant and service management, device management, identity management, and security management. Each of these preparation areas will roll up to exams through the learning paths that Microsoft has defined. At Opsgility, we also align to these learning paths, making it easy to use the training that's right for you. For the Enterprise Administrator role, the exams will be split between an Identity and Services exam and then a Mobility and Security exam. By passing each of these exams and having the prerequisite of the Associate Level certification, students will obtain the level of Enterprise Administrator Expert. At Opsgility, we make certification preparation easy, with multiple paths available to students, including instructor-led and on-demand training in both Azure and Microsoft 365. We can even help you order and manage certification vouchers for teams, making it easy to purchase vouchers in bulk and distribute them as your team members complete their learning paths and are ready to sit for official exams. We also offer a hands-on lab platform in addition to our on-demand and instructor-led training. This platform allows you to experience Azure in a sandbox environment with step-by-step lab guides which reinforce what you've learned in class. Lab progress is also tracked, so you'll know which labs you've completed and which labs you have left to do in a given learning path or course. This also means you'll have access to certificates of completion for individuals, and if you're a team owner, you can track the progress of your team and ensure they're staying up to date on their skills. And one last thing before we close out. We do have a 5-day on-site AZ100 and AZ101 certification training course that will be coming up on November 5th through November 9th in Dallas, Texas. This instructor-led class will take students through 5 10-hour days of intensive training for both the AZ100 and AZ101 exams, walking students through customized learning paths for each exam with numerous demos and hands-on labs. This training is currently open for individual enrollment at bit.ly/AZ100 Dallas. All enrollments include access to practice tests and exam vouchers, and we even have an enrollment which includes a subscription to our on-demand lab platform, Skill Me Up, so students can go back and run through labs again or watch recorded courses to reinforce what they've learned in class. Thank you for joining us today as we reviewed the opportunity for certification, including the realignment of Microsoft certifications to be more consumable and role-based. We at Opsgility are excited to help you become certified in both Azure and Microsoft 365, however you like to learn.